This episode is brought to you by Starbucks.
That is fire.
Whoa, that's good.
This might be the drink of the summer.
Okay, I like this one too. I'm rocking with it. Okay.
Try it for yourself. Starbucks Refreshers concentrates are coming home. Find them in the coffee aisle and make it yours.
And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. Yes, a great day and a great nation, though not great news, not great developments for Republicans or for Democrats. Some very bad news for both of the major parties. So what does that mean for the midterm elections coming up? Who knows at this point? On today's show, the Republicans embarrassed themselves over a very peculiar Fauci fascination. There are hearings today being convened by Senator Rand Paul, who is a Republican. And Rand Paul is a particular demonstration of Fauci fever. What is the fascination exactly? What is it that they're attempting to do to try to find out about how we can handle pandemics better than we handled the last one? Because there will be others. That's kind of inevitable. We'll play some highlights from the Senate hearings today convened by Rand Paul, who seems to have only one interest in all of this, which is putting Dr. Fauci in jail. What is that about? We'll play you some highlights and a lot of lowlights from the Fauci hearings today. And meanwhile, for the Democrats, they are flat out broke, not only on ideas to motivate their party, but they're flat broke in terms of cash and fundraising. The Republican National Committee maintains a 7-1 money advantage over the Democrats. And yet there is no certainty of the Republicans using that money advantage to win. Why not? Well, just one example. President Trump bombed again while giving a speech at Lindsey Graham's funeral today. During the memorial, he struggled to both put a tic-tac into his mouth and particularly to stay awake. We won't play so much of it that you will be tempted to sleep. You can sleep later tonight. Meanwhile, there is a surprise attack. This is not political, it is military. Iran fired multiple ballistic missiles at a U.S. base in the Middle East in what the U.S. called a surprise attack, interrupting a brief period in which tit-for-tat strikes had been halted. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, said the missiles fired yesterday were all shot down, and forces remain vigilant and in a high state of readiness. Axios reported the base was in Jordan. Okay, why is it, do you think, that Iran is aiming for U.S. bases in the Middle East, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Oman, in Saudi Arabia, in Jordan, but the Iranians haven't aimed for bases in Israel? You know why? Because there are no U.S. bases in Israel. Where is cooperation between the Israelis and the Americans? But the idea of hitting Israel, there's also the idea that, as with the U.S. bases that they attempted to hit in Jordan, we were very effective. Our military, as always, God willing, it will continue, were effective at shooting down the projectiles that had been aimed at killing Americans and destroying our equipment. CENTCOM announced that U.S. and Saudi forces conducted precision strikes in Iraq against Iranian-aligned terrorists in response to the attacks on the American base in Jordan, hitting logistics and weapons sites. The strikes return the Iran conflict to open fighting after the U.S. paused its attacks against Iran as the Trump administration signaled it wanted to give peace talks a chance. Trump had been considering a major combat operation against Iran last week, but he held off amid concerns about dwindling U.S. munitions stockpiles. And this should be, by the way, a completely bipartisan, nonpartisan, non-political issue, is to get us to produce those new munition stockpiles so that our policy is not guided by what's good for America or what is to the advantage of this great country, but our policy is shaped by how much we have in the way of available munitions. We can do better. We must do better. CENTCOM said that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has launched more than 30 aerial drone attacks in the past 72 hours. Thank God nearly all of those drones have been shot down or have struck without particular or notable damage. Speaking about notable damage, the Secret Service agents who questioned the former FBI director James R. Comey were told to settle and send details of the interview they conducted with former FBI Director Comey to forward that information directly to President Trump so that while riding on Air Force One, the president could review them. This, according to a new court filing by Mr. Comey's lawyers seeking to dismiss the criminal case against him. Now, what's the criminal case against James Comey? The filing is based on internal government documents turned over to Mr. Comey as he fights a criminal charge. The criminal charge is that a photo he posted online showed seashells on a beach that said the numbers 8647. And that supposedly, even though it never was explained by anyone or claimed by anyone, whoever arranged those numbers, supposedly 86 was a number that signifies getting rid of something, just getting rid of it. And 47 was a reference to the 47th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. The disclosure right now about this whole case trying to make the two numbers in seashells that we have no evidence at all were actually set up by Comey himself. They were just photographed by him. Did that amount to an actionable illegal threat against the president? The disclosure of the order to submit this information about the case to President Trump directly, that disclosure is the most glaring example to date of the degree to which Mr. Trump now directs federal law enforcement actions personally and suggests, as the New York Times, his intense personal involvement in investigating people like James Comey, whom he considers a personal nemesis. Meanwhile, there is news on the Mitch McConnell front. There is news on the fundraising by the Republicans and the Democrats, though it's not really in the same league at all. And highlights and lowlights of the Rand Paul, Anthony Fauci hearings, Senate hearings on Capitol Hill today. We'll get to all of this and much more coming up on the Medved Show. And on the Michael Medved Show, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky has scheduled a vote to hold Dr. Anthony Fauci in contempt of Congress. This after Dr. Fauci refused to answer questions pleading his Fifth Amendment rights about 90 times in a Senate hearing today, and invoking his Fifth Amendment rights dozens and dozens of times. Fauci appeared before the Senate's Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee today, where he refused to answer any questions, really, as he was grilled on everything from his now released COVID-era diary. And how did it get released? Apparently, it got discovered online by RFK Jr. There's an interesting source. And he was grilled on everything today. This is Fauci, from his now released COVID-era diary, including the origins of COVID to lockdown measures taken during the pandemic. The hearing today began with a fairly strong statement by Dr. Fauci, who called out Rand Paul's unhinged obsession with him in a firing opening statement. This is what it sounded like this morning, clip 25.
Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Therefore, although it pains me to do so, because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Okay, basically, that announces very directly what he intends to do. But it did not speak necessarily for his attorneys, who were very aggressive in trying to defend Dr. Anthony Fauci. What he is accused of, by the way, is not entirely clear, though Rand Paul repeatedly claims that he had lied to Congress. I'm sure we will get to that in great detail. And there was a confrontation that actually led to somebody being thrown out, confrontation between one of Dr. Fauci's attorneys and Senator Rand Paul, who was chairing this committee hearing on Dr. Fauci. At its height and intensity, it sounded like this. This is clip 24.
Come on, man, make a comment.
You're not recognized. You're not recognized. If you are unruly, you will be removed from the proceeding. You are not recognized, and you are not recognized, sir. Sir, you are not recognized. You are not recognized. Security, we'll hold off. But you will respect these proceedings. You were told not to sit at the table. You insist on sitting at the table. And we told you you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said sit quietly. You are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
He is not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony Fauci. This is not a game with his lawyers.
Okay, in other words, Rand Paul is making it very clear he doesn't want to give any rights to speak at all or to be heard to Anthony Fauci's lawyers. Here's the moment where Rand Paul finally made the decision to have him escorted out of the room and thrown out of the proceedings. This is clip 23.
And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered, for a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room. Let the record state that Dr. Fauci will still have the advice of the other half a dozen attorneys that he brought along today.
Okay, the reporters caught up with Fauci's lawyer, the one who was making the most insistent policy of trying to be heard. In the halls of Congress, the attorney spoke with reporters about what he was trying to communicate to the committee. This is clip 2.
No comments for the press.
That was a public statement you were trying to make. Have you ever seen this happen in a congressional hearing?
Dr. Fauci has a valid Fifth Amendment privilege, and he has the right to assert it.
And that's what you were trying to say?
That's what I was trying to tell the committee.
Okay, this is what he was trying to tell the committee, and this was the reason for which they had to shut him up. Senator Gary Peters, who is the ranking Democrat in this committee, Gary Peters of Michigan, coming up, had his own attack, and it wasn't on Anthony Fauci. It was on Rand Paul. And by the way, when you're hearing Rand Paul's obsession here, I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but it kind of reminds me of his family background, because his father, Ron Paul, who ran for president several times, was and is a crackpot and a pro-Putin, anti-American crackpot, and profoundly bigoted one at that. And again, one would hope that the senator from Kentucky would break that family tradition. But the obsession with Fauci, the Fauci fascination, maybe indicates that those hopes will not be answered. We will be right back on the MedVet Show.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
Why did I search the internet for answers to my cold sore problem? Now I'm stuck down a rabbit hole filled with images of alarmingly graphic sores in various stages of ooze. I can clear my search history, but I can never unsee that.
Don't go down the rabbit hole. Amazon Health AI gets you the right care fast. Healthcare just got less painful.
And on the MedVed Show, we are going to hear from Senator Gary Peters, who is an outgoing member of the U.S. Senate. He is not running for re-election. He is a Democrat from Michigan, and one of the Democratic candidates, one of the two leading Democratic candidates to replace him in the Senate representing Michigan is Dr. Abdul al-Sayed, who is a radical, far-left, anti-American and anti-Israel politician who is on the far left of the Democratic Party. So it gives you more reasons to appreciate Senator Peters when he's there. He's running, by the way, against an outstanding Republican, Mike Rogers, who has served our country in the FBI and in the field of security and intelligence for a long time. Speaking about security and intelligence, Senator Gary Peters had this to say about his colleague, The chairman of the committee, in which Senator Peters is the ranking Democrat, Rand Paul. Clip 3.
Unfortunately, today's hearing is the latest step in the chairman's sharp departure from that long tradition. This hearing appears to be a culmination of months of biased and selected efforts by the majority under the guise of a committee investigation to basically legitimize a predetermined conclusion that was reached years ago. In 2021, the chairman has called for today's witness to be fired, to be arrested, accused him of leading cover-ups and conspiracies. He has even featured the witness prominently in fundraising emails and on the cover of his book. He has also called for the cancellation of the witness's security detail, despite the fact the witness and his family have received numerous credible death threats. Unfortunately, I fear the intent of this hearing is only meant to further a purely partisan agenda and will not make Americans safer.
That seems to contradict some of the Rand Paul allies on the committee, including Josh Hawley, his co-member of the U.S. Senate, who represents, of course, the state of Missouri. He addressed comments to Dr. Fauci, basically impugning his testimony because he offered the Fifth Amendment so many times, choosing not to answer what he considered to be inappropriate or politicized questioning. This is Senator Josh Hawley, Republican of Missouri. Clip 1.
Well, nothing says honesty like taking the Fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich.
Okay, that was Josh Hawley. The idea of trying to make Dr. Fauci into a villain, does he get no credit at all for something that the Trump administration deserves credit for, which is the project that led to the successful development of the vaccinations that have helped to curb the rampages of the pandemic and to save literally millions of American lives? Or was the whole pandemic a fraud, as some crackpots believe? The crackpots believe, among them, RFK Jr., our shamefully inappropriate Secretary of Health and Human Services. He appeared on Fox News to, again, blame Anthony Fauci for the ravages of a pandemic that was worldwide. Here is RFK, clip 22.
We had in our country, because of Dr. Fauci's leadership and other reasons, we had the highest mortality rate from COVID of any country in the world. So we literally did worse than any nation in the world.
Okay, the reason the U.S. had the highest rate of COVID-19 deaths, according to NPR and PBS and The Hill, the U.S. recorded the highest absolute number of COVID-19 deaths globally due to a combination of severe political polarization. You remember that. Literally scores of people discouraged from getting life-protecting vaccinations, widespread misinformation. Remember all the magic cures like ivermectin that was supposed to help? A low vaccination uptake relative to peer nations, a decentralized public health infrastructure, and higher baseline rates of underlying chronic conditions like obesity and diabetes. In other words, long before COVID-19, we had a problem with obesity rates and the rates of diabetes here, which relates to people's eating to some extent. And there was also, as they made clear on PBS, politicization and misinformation. The public health response and basic mitigation measures like masking became deeply politicized, reducing compliance and vaccine uptake. Vaccines were widely available. The U.S. struggled with significant vaccine hesitancy, leaving vulnerable populations unprotected compared to other high-income countries. Underlying health conditions, the U.S. population has a high percentage of comorbidities, such as obesity, hypertension, and diabetes, that increase the risk of severe disease and mortality. And then there was the factor of decentralized healthcare. The fragmented nature of the U.S. healthcare and public health system led to highly inconsistent testing, tracing, and pandemic management policies across different states. And there were crazy talk show hosts, horse shots, and crazy pastors who made their own contribution to this difficulty. But there is more. Rand Paul announcing his plans to continue this Fauci fascination next week. What does he have in mind? We will get to that. And President Trump responding to the Iran surprise attack and threatening consequences. We will get to that. And more on President Trump's own legal challenges coming up on the Medved Show. And on the Michael Medved Show, there is a division about public opinion about Anthony Fauci. And he is very much a center of attention on Capitol Hill right now. Rand Paul is planning to hold a vote next week. What is the purpose of the vote? To make Americans healthier, to make Americans more secure, to improve our healthcare delivery or our system or anything of the kind? Well, here's what Senator Paul had to say for his plans concerning Dr. Fauci. This is clip 4.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
My question was limited to the period of your pardon only. I find your objection unsupported and direct you to answer the question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Because you refuse to answer, citing a privilege that is unsupported because of your pardon, and after being denied to do so, this committee has scheduled a vote next week on a resolution certifying your contempt.
Okay, that's makes him subject to a punishment for contempt of Congress. It is unlikely that this is going to succeed, but unfortunately, it is a virtual certainty that it may not succeed, but it will proceed because of the deep negative obsession with Dr. Fauci on the part of Senator Rand Paul. Now, this, by the way, despite the most recent polling on this issue, the most recent polling because Dr. Paul, he left his job after 38 years as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. He left that position voluntarily in December of 2022, after 38 years in that position. And in 2025, September of 2025, so less than a year ago, they did another poll, an Annenberg Public Policy Center poll, where 57% of respondents said they trusted Dr. Fauci to provide the public with trustworthy information on matters concerning public health. How many people said that about Secretary Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, the Secretary of Health and Human Services? 39%. In other words, people were much more likely to trust Dr. Fauci, who, by the way, has a lifetime of medical training and experience and devotion, to his credit, to trust Dr. Fauci than to trust Secretary Kennedy, who has virtually no experience in public health. Or, I mean, he's a lawyer, and some people say a lawyer and a liar, but leave that alone. Dr. Fauci resigned as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases in December of 2022 after 38 years in that position, and a great deal of admiration about his service in that position. Annenberg's survey results come amid Secretary Kennedy's radical reshaping of federal health agencies, and as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention considers altering long-standing vaccine schedules for children. The background on Fauci's popularity during the COVID-19 pandemic was deeply polarized, characterized by massive public adulation and global celebrity status on one side, and intense political backlash and security threats on the other. Public opinion polls showed a stark political divide, with high trust for Fauci among Democrats and significantly lower confidence among Republicans. The initial acclaim early in 2020, Fauci became a household name and cultural icon, with admirers tracking flattering media profiles, T-shirts, and petitions to name him the sexiest man alive. I'm not sure he promoted that actively. Private tracking, newly revealed private pandemic journals show that Fauci closely monitored his own explosive national and international fame while trying to maintain his focus in stopping and curbing the outbreak. The partisan divide, and this is based on data from Kaiser Family Foundation and other sources, multi-year tracking polls highlighted that overall trust in Fauci sat near 68% total, but split heavily along party lines. Backing from roughly 86 to 90% of Democrats who had confidence in Fauci, compared to only 25 to 47% of Republicans. Okay, but if up to 47% of Republicans, considering the partisan nature of this, still said they had confidence in Fauci, well, there's a political friction. Fauci faced prolonged probes and public friction from Republican lawmakers, prominently including Senator Rand Paul, regarding pandemic restrictions, virus origins, and public health messaging. And then there is more about threats and harassment. His high profile and polarizing reception brought a severe personal cost, resulting in heavy hate mail, cyber harassment of his family, and credible death threats that required a permanent security detail, which is, when you talk about somebody whose work and life is dedicated to public health, this is extraordinary. And the item about him pleading the Fifth Amendment and the question about whether or not that is legal, you cannot plead the Fifth Amendment regarding crimes that are fully covered by an accepted pardon. But you can still plead it for unpardoned acts, state crimes, or new offenses. Once a pardon removes legal jeopardy for a specific past crime, the protection against self-incrimination for that exact crime disappears. A question that remains very pertinent: where is the crime? And where is the crime here? Was it creating the vaccination, or was it provoking or perpetuating lies about the vaccination? I am not sure what the crimes are that they are going to allege as the Senate committee continues its work. Concerning crimes and difficulties and anger, there is President Trump's reaction, a reaction of rage about the surprise Iran attack. President Trump apparently had, according to Fox News, a directly obscene and unrepeatable reaction to the latest attack by the Iranians. And we will also talk about President Trump and his presence and participation in the Lindsey Graham funeral at the National Cathedral, with funeral services for the late Senator Graham. That with President Trump participating, and the President Trump talking very personally about their complicated relationship, and also concluding that Senator Graham was one of the great figures in all of Senate history. We will get to that and to more coming up in this greatest nation on God's green earth.